things of a technical nature like cyber attacks and all that, most people haven't the foggiest clue. I even studied in computers. We're talking about the internet. I was programming web pages and, monochrome web pages on mainframe computers before, like, we actually knew the, World Wide Web with, like, images. Even before images, I was programming on it, So this is next generation. So what's coming up with these changes, they can't get these things unless they have some kind of like reason. So a cyber attack really fits the purpose. Why? Because it's complicated. People are not going to understand it, and what's going to happen is they're going to just going to be desperate, because if they do this cyber attack, they'll probably cut the electrical grid for, I would guess, at least a week. Okay, so people freak out. They can't, they 1 or 2 days without their internet, or even electricity, people freak out, So imagine 1 week, and then, that's going to shut down everything, global supply chains. People will not be able to go to ATMs. Store shelves are going to, if people have cash, they're going to get wiped out if they're open, the disruptions and all that. And section 5 of my post on the cyber attack, it focuses on what I would call a test run they had for this that happened in Canada last summer. Okay, I think it's July 8th, 2022. And ironically, that was the date that there was the World Economic Forum cyber polygon exercise simulation of a global cyber attack.
Did they run it in 2022 then? Did they run cyber polygon?
They ran it later in the year. The event was postponed. It was postponed like months earlier for a later date, but it was scheduled
that had to be
for
to do
July
with the Ukraine-Russia stuff. That had to be because when for the first two, I think it was the first two that they did, was like, it was Mikhail Mishustin was heading up all of the stuff, and he was all like, there was a load of Russians who were basically helping out with Cyber Polygon. I suppose the last Cyber Polygon had 0 Russians involved.
Well, that's it. There was no Cyber Polygon 2023. They had 2020, 2021, 2022. And then, we know that, of course, Russia invaded the Ukraine, and the first 2 cyber polygons were organized by, SBER, Sberbank, or the big Russian bank. And BIZON, BI.ZON, are like kind of Russian cybersecurity firm.
Yeah, some weird sort of like,
It was all led by, those people. They even had, conferences. They were even connecting with the cosmonauts, astronauts at the International Space Station and everything. And they had different guests. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting coincidence, and it's very technical in nature how this like Rogers outage happened, because there were some like experts who just kind of found some fishy holes in it, and I write about that in my post. And I actually had to consult another Substacker who's kind of like more comfortable with this technical stuff, because I want to make sure I understood it well.
When you're saying Rogers outage, for people who don't know, Rogers is a company. It's a telecommunications.
Okay, sorry. In Canada we have like Rogers Communication, because in Canada we only have 2-3 major providers of cell phone service. So it's similar to like AT&T, Verizon in the US. Okay, so in Canada we have Bell and we have Rogers, and I think the other one is Shaw. So a lot of them provide both cell service and internet services. Okay, so but there were a lot of like fishy things that were going on in that outage, because they said they were doing some maintenance upgrade or things like that, but actually there's a lot of fishy stuff going on with the routing, because the packages, when we surf the internet, or when I send you an email, or you send me an email, or there's a Zoom call or whatever, these packets are flowing through the internet back and forth, right? But they go through plumbing, they go through pipes, right? They go through these major providers, right? And it's no secret, like the history of the internet is ARPANET, right? It's a military kind of communication network, right? So everything that goes through there is all filtered. It could be encrypted, sure, but I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that at least the U.S. military, they pretty much know everything that's going, through all these packets. So what's interesting, so anyway, like I think it was kind of a cast because like they showed video, also they linked to Reuters articles about Canadians that were really upset about the outage, and it wasn't even 24 hours, and people were freaking out because they couldn't, check their Facebook. They couldn't take a taxi because they didn't have cash and they only accepted cash that day, and the ATMs were not working, and it was just chaos, like in a way. And that was just one day, so imagine a week.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think this
again.
was a test run to see how people would react to. That's a little bit conjecture, sure. I don't have definite proof, but I have suspicions. But there's some weird stuff happening with like IP addresses too. And something we were talking about pre-record is like literally 3 minutes before Joe Biden took office, okay, there's the Department of Defense. They have this kind of like obscure division called the DDS, Defense Digital Service. Okay. And they actually owned collectively like 175 million IP addresses. Okay. And they transferred that to this obscure company called Global Resource Systems, which I believe is based in Florida. And this was 3 minutes before Biden took office. I don't know why
But
exactly
so
that particular time.
what are all of those? That's the creation of a load of like IP addresses that will be used for bots, used for
Yeah,
AI,
I'm not
you created
exactly
in
sure,
different
but
ways.
it's kind of like, let's say I don't know, you have your newspaste.com, okay? You install that. There's a server, newspaste.com. If you could go IP domain lookup or something, it'll give you a number like 13.12.155.2 or something like that, right? Those are IP addresses. So that
Mm-hmm.
only belongs to you, right? So any traffic flowing, it'll go there. But let's say they don't like you, okay, and that particular IP address, they can ban it, okay, and no traffic will
Mm-hmm.
go to or from there, okay. If they don't like you, that's a way to unplug you. They already do this with like to prevent spam from flowing on the internet, okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, what exactly are these 175 million IP addresses? I'm not exactly sure, but because it's basically the Department of Defense and ARPA that created the internet, they have somehow had all these addresses. Why are they transferring them to this obscure company? They have a website, but there's nothing on there. I'm not exactly sure, but I have a feeling maybe I only read about this morning, so I haven't had chance to dig in deeper, but I have a feeling that maybe this has to do with Internet 2.0. Look at the changes happening on X, formerly called Twitter. I think that a lot of like the new internet is going to be filtered through these IP addresses, but I could be wrong because this is very technical, and and maybe a lot of techies will point out some holes
Nuances.
in my thing. But like I said, I
Mhm.
haven't done the full deep dive yet. I need to consult with some other people on this. A little bit
It sounds
speculation
like
right
it,
now.
but I mean, what does is it puts 180 million players on the battlefield. That's a digital battlefield. It's something along those lines. Yeah,
And just to give you an idea of the numbers, 175 million IP
170
addresses is
million.
the
Yeah.
equivalent of what we have in China, or China Telecom is the biggest provider of internet sites and internet in China, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like bigger than that and AT&T combined, okay? So that gives you an idea. We're not talking about like a small little corner of the internet. We're
No, no,
talking about
this
a pretty large percentage. I don't know that amounts to what, if it's like 6 or 16%. I don't know the exact number, but it's a pretty big chunk, you know.
it's turning now.
So
Now we're going into total fifth generation warfare. This is coming.
yeah,
This
and
is
this is where the AI ties in, because I think there's too much traffic to monitor and everything. So they're going to be using AI, and that's why X platform just changed its terms of service. Even Zoom also, I think last year they got some pushback because they changed their terms of service, and they said that they're going to permit some AI kind of like testing kind of thing, and then people got angry, and I think they removed it afterwards from their terms of
Mhm.
service. It might still be in there, I don't know. But X also, they just recently made some of these changes too, and then they want to collect people's. They can say they can collect your biometric information, okay, your face, tag your pictures, things like that. Facebook already does this. This is usually done kind of without your consent, unless you go change some certain settings. But they're obviously doing it. They've done it in China. China, it's everywhere because I live there. I know there's cameras everywhere. They do it. So they're doing these things, and it's going to be a pretty tyrannical control grid if you start having things like AI dictate, like what traffic can flow, who can post what can be considered hate speech, this, that, or the other. I mean, even in China, even like 5 years ago, they had like court cases in Shenzhen where I was. It wasn't judges ruling like cases; it was AI programs. Okay, so you can imagine how tyrannical this could get. You would have like no recourse. So anyway, maybe because yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say it's so complicated with AI. There's like what we got now. I've been playing around with Chat GPT now. It's really good for some things. It's really good for letter writing. It's really good for doing certain tasks. But you can see how programmed it is. It claims not to be if you ask it, but if you go through a backwards and forwards and you test it out, you watch how it's been programmed. And it tells you as well. It tells you it's not allowed to talk about this. It's not allowed to talk about that. It's these type of things are considered could be harmful to people or could make people upset. But then there's this there's sometimes where it's just like it takes a while to learn it. So the other day I was able to create a play with Jimmy Savile in it, and it was completely inappropriate. And then a couple of chats down the line, it wouldn't let me insert him into anything else. And he was like, no, he did bad things. It's like, well, it took you a while. It told me that it never did what it did. And I then showed it what it did, and it said, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. So it's programmed to make you feel as though it's something that's fallible, that's something that oh yeah, maybe you're right, you can help me, I can help you, so give me more information, thank you. It's been programmed to be genteel, to coax the information out of people. And I find it like I find myself trying to test boundaries with it, because we're all hitting there. Once things are run by AI in a way that's organized, I have no idea what this society is going to look like anymore. And I think we're about 5 years away from that happening.